Chinese, good morning. This morning, I intend to spend some time speaking about the first half of 2023, the performance of the economy in our country in the first half of 2023. In my previous press conference just a while ago, I positioned Guyana's development in the global context, and I shared with members of the media the global and regional realities through which our development and our advancement is taking place. At that press conference, I also laid out the clearly defined strategy of the government of Guyana in tackling important global issues. I also outlined some of the results as a result of the policies we have implemented since assuming office in 2020. As you know, since assuming office, we have pursued a path of inclusionary democracy, one in which we sought to redefine the narrative about Guyana and the frame of Guyana, as at that point, our credentials, our democratic credentials, our credentials in relation to the rule of law was completely lost because of a group of persons who took it upon themselves at the expense of all of Guyana to rubbish democracy, the will of the people, and the rule of law. And we embark on a task of reshaping the forum requests the presence of Guyana. We are playing a lead role in important issues. Guyana is at the table. We are not a country, we are a country pursuing a balanced, holistic, diversified portfolio that will see sustainability and resilience of our economy, our country, and our people. And that is the context through which the investment in Guyana and the different sector is taking place. And as a result of this wide approach, this holistic approach, in the first half of 2023, real GDP grew by an estimated 59.5% in the first half of 2023. But important to note is that the non-oil economy grew by 12.3% in the first half of this year. And this is as a direct result of the policy matrix of the government and the country. Investing, reigniting the traditional sectors, and expanding our economic footing. And I'll give you some examples briefly. Later today, the Minister of Finance would release the complete document in relation to the half-year report. The sugar industry, and let us look at agriculture as a sector, first of all. Agriculture, forestry, and fishing. These were sectors that were completely destroyed in the 5 years of the last government. Forestry was in a state of bankruptcy. They did not have resources to pay the staff in forestry. We took that. We took an agricultural sector that became burdensome on the backs of the farmers, with taxes, increases in taxes, D&I fees, no support in capital investment in drainage and irrigation, the most critical impetus for agricultural production. We took that and we transformed it. So agriculture, forestry, and fishing expanded by an estimated 7.6% in the first half of this year. When compared to the first half of 2022, the sugar industry grew by 30.1%. And as you know, we are fully committed to the sugar industry, the revival of this industry, and the integration of this industry in the local economies in the regions of our country. I don't have to remind you what was the state of sugar between 2015 and 2020. I don't have to remind you as to who closed the industry down. I don't have to remind you about who sent home thousands of workers. I don't have to remind you of these things. I don't have to remind you about who reopened the industry in the first 100 days in office. So those who are masquerading around as promoters and defenders of the sugar workers are masked in their banditry of destroying the industry. They are masked in their banditry of destroying the industry. Because these are the open masked individuals who stood in Parliament and criticized our defense of this industry and keeping this industry alive. Today, after raiding the workers, their life and their livelihood, they have the audacity, I can't use integrity, they have the audacity to claim love for the workers. It is what I term open banditry. That is how I term it, open banditry. Just imagine, I give you an example. The man who comes as a bandit and rob you is then coming to tell you, I will find the robber for you. We have to be far more serious about our lives and our livelihood than to accept this level of deception and dishonor. Because that is what it is. And we have to call it for what it is. It is deception and dishonor. The rice industry in the first half of this year, when compared to 2022, grew by an estimated 3.2%. And we're seeing the steady growth of the industry because of the continuous investment in drainage and irrigation, the fiscal incentives, the increase in the use of technology, the expansion of research and development, and the opening up of new lands. Other crop sector is estimated to have grown by 9.4% in the first half of this year. The livestock industry, and you all know because we have dealt with this as a sector by itself, would have grew by an estimated 9.4% in the first half of this year, the poultry sector. And this growth is really demonstrating how successful the policies and the policy formulation and the government agenda, Guyana's agenda and development, how successful it is, how the model is delivering results. And that is what is important. At the end of the day, results is what matters. And this is a clear demonstration as to how the model, the development model that we're using, is producing that result. So the livestock industry has expanded by an estimated 4.7%. The forestry sector, the forestry industry, this is an industry that was in total ruins. Virtually, this industry was completely shut down. The forestry sector in the first half of this year grew by 4.5%. 4.5% growth in the forestry sector. Now, when you understand the nature of the growth of the productive sector, you will know that this growth is linked to critical components of the economy: transportation and logistics, food, mechanical services, machining services, drivers. So that growth would translate into the development and advancement of other sectors and areas of our country. And this is how the growth translates itself into benefit at a community and household level. It is because of this expansion that is taking place that you're seeing the increases in the salaries for skilled and semi-skilled workers, whether it's drivers, mechanics. And before I leave the issue of sugar, there is ongoing consultation with the workers on the issue of, and they've raised an issue in relation to the number of work days that they're given. Because as you know, in the industry, it is work days. And they're asking for a minimum number of work days at 5, at some estates, and 6. And this is a conversation that is ongoing with our sugar workers so that together we can find that common solution. We're also going to have consultation with our teachers. As soon as I return from the UN, those consultations will commence so that that category of workers, I've already instructed that the Minister of Health move forward the plans of the second wave of consultation with our health workers, our nurses, because we want to target a holistic menu of measures that will improve the welfare and well-being of our workers all across Guyana. The fishing industry. No, for 5 years, we had no communication on these sectors. You never heard policies surrounding aquaculture and fishery. But today, because of the robust policy environment, we have been able to advance our fishery sector. And in the first half of this year, we have seen the sector expanding itself by 9.9%. 9.9% in the first half of this year. Whilst the extractive sector, the extractive industries, mining and quarrying showed an overall growth of 89.9% in the first half of this year, with very strong growth in the petroleum subsector, as is anticipated, growth of 98.4%. We are working now with our miners, our gold miners, and the bauxite industry on a path of one, expanding production and going to the root cause of the slothful declaration in the first quarter of this year when we look at the gold declaration. We have seen marked improvement in the last 30 days, but that is an ongoing conversation that will be supported by various consultation, investigation that we are doing in the entire sector so that we can have a firm understanding and take the necessary policy, make the necessary policy intervention that would see the continued growth and expansion of this industry. Therefore, in the extractive industry, the sluggish nature of the growth or the slow growth in the first quarter, not in keeping with the projected growth, will be addressed. That is for gold and bauxite. Notwithstanding the tremendous support that we have brought back to mining, bauxite, and gold, as you know. And I would say that in my consultation with the miners, they are fully committed to this task and they understand what is required, and they are very, very supportive, and I would say grateful for the intervention of the government of Guyana in revitalizing their industry. On the other hand, mining and quarrying, the mining and quarrying industry, when we came into government, quarrying was virtually dead. The production was at an all-time low, even when compared to 2015. We have been able to bring the necessary measures and fiscal incentives to stimulate back this sector to the extent that in the first half of this year, other mining and quarrying grew by 45.2%. Looking at sand, and this is expected to even grow faster and further. And this is as a result of the massive expansion of the construction sector and the building out of Guyana, both by the public, private, and families, because families are building their homes too, right, Marcella? In manufacturing, services, and construction, we have seen tremendous expansion also. The manufacturing sector is estimated to have grown by 17.7%. And this is important because these are the sectors that we are putting a lot of emphasis on. And the manufacturing sector grew by 17.7%, driven largely by increases in the manufacturing of wood products, fabricated metal products, non-metallic products, paints, and plastic products. Those categories would let you understand that the growth is not only at the macro level, the growth is at the household level and at the community level, driven by a very strong, robust, and accelerated housing program of the government of Guyana. The services industries, if you look at the services industry, that is largely reflective of what is taking place with wholesale and retail sale, grew by 9.1%. The services industry grew by 9.1%. And the construction sector, as I said earlier, which is reflective of what is taking place in the development of our country. You know, key international figures describe Guyana as a construction zone because the entire place is being rebuilt. And many persons who are back over the last 3 weeks are amazed at the pace of development. The pace of development is second to none. So the construction sector has grown substantially in the first half of this year by 44.1%. 44.1% growth in the construction sector. When you look at the monetary developments, you will see that credit to the private sector grew by 5%. Credit by the private sector, credit to the private sector grew by 5%. And this growth is expected to further advance in the second half of this year. Credit to business enterprises in the services and manufacturing sector. Now, this is important because these are sectors that we are building for the future. Credit to business enterprises in the services and manufacturing sectors grew by 3.3% and 8.9% respectively. 3.3% and 8.9% respectively. Real estate mortgages, that is mortgages for homes, new homes, construction of homes. Real estate mortgages grew by 7.3%, largely driven by mortgages granted for private dwellings. 7.3% growth. And this growth came also with reducing interest rates. So when we look at the state of our economy and the matrix of the economy, you would see it is reflective of the policy orientation of the government, and the spread of development, the spread of growth is exactly what we are pursuing for Guyana. That is a very important point I want to make. Now, I have been in communication with the private sector, businesses across the country, and looking at some of the public commentary. And one of the issues in the public domain is the foreign exchange market. And I've seen a lot of debate in relation to the foreign exchange rate and availability of foreign currency. Now, it is important for us to understand that the foreign exchange market and the rate on the foreign exchange market is no longer determined by the government, but to a large extent by market forces of demand and supply. And I think recently in one of the press conferences of the Vice President, he pointed to this and he elaborated on the role of the market, issues of hoarding by market players. But when I review the statistics from the Bank of Guyana and the cambios, and listening to the governor of the central bank and the technical team, they're of the opinion, based on the data, that they have sufficient foreign currency to satisfy the existing demand. And there is continuous surveillance of this. There's a daily reporting mechanism on the clearing of the market by the central bank. However, notwithstanding this, I've instructed the Minister of Finance to convene a stakeholder meeting on Monday with the private sector, the central bank, all the commercial banks, and other key stakeholders to have everyone in the room and to discuss this issue in a holistic manner. And to bring to me a report based on those consultations so that we can further examine this matter. That meeting is scheduled for Monday. I don't want to go into the details of different sectors today, but I want to assure the Guyanese people that this is a government they can rely on, and we are a government that sticks to our commitment. We will recall that we went to the electorate in 2020 with a program described as the manifesto. And the electorate would have elected their government of choice based on that program. As I speak to you today, we are now exceeding the commitment we made in that manifesto. On the economy, I am currently re-evaluating our revenues, projected revenues, the economy, based on its strength, to analyze whether and when, not whether and when, because we have the capacity, and further adjustment in the daily minimum wage. So this is something that I am presently reviewing with an aim at a further adjustment in the daily minimum wage. Also reviewing the absorptive capacity at further advancing liquidity in your pocket, if I may put it that way, by an adjustment in the tax threshold. This is another issue that I would say is on the front burner of consideration. We are analyzing the numbers. in ensuring that whatever we come up with is in keeping with the sustainability of our economy, because that is what is important. On the issue of democracy, as I said earlier, we have been able to strengthen our democracy, our democratic creed, if you want to put it that way, and restoring power to the people. And I see some voices on the matter of democracy that were voiceless when democracy was under threat, that exhibit complete lack of spine when the branches of democracy are being tenderized to be broken. Suddenly, the voices in the wilderness, some, has been reawakened. And guess what? I'm happy. Because that is when you know democracy is alive and well. When those voices are no longer afraid to come out of its wilderness and find a place in a free, open, and democratic society without fear, then you're happy because you know, once again, democracy is alive and well. But what defies logics, again, is just like the sugar workers. Can you imagine the APNU AFC wanting to lecture you on free and fair elections? Imagine the architects of rigging and the custodian of the new numbering system and new mathematical analysis wanting to teach the forces of democracy about democracy. Man, if this is not open banditry, what it is. And sometimes when you call it for what it is, those who are guilty are upset. But that is how frank discussion sometimes emerge, you know. So our credentials on democracy cannot be questioned because we have always been on the right side of democracy. And I owe it to have the custodians of democracy and those who fought for democracy have that award. On October the 5th, the Democracy Award will be announced and unveiled in Guyana on October the 5th. The awards would have come, should have come earlier this year, but we are currently in the production, the design and production. Design is completed, the production of those awards. The necessary gazetting to have this award listed, part of our national collection of awards, will be done. And on October the 5th, in honor of those who stood up with spine, with character, with dignity, their country shall stand them up tall in the eyes of the world and society. And if you look at the Freedom of the World report, you would see the strides that we're making in terms of our democratic credentials. And you would also see how impactful rigged elections, an attempt to rig and derail elections in democracy is on the credentials of a country. And we, since 2020, are fighting to overcome that stigma that was placed on Guyana, that was those. And if you want to understand how impactful it was, even the United States, when you look at 2013 to now, in the same report, they had a huge decline in their democracy setting by almost 10 points relative to 2013. And that was because of what took place after the elections. And that is a superpower. Imagine a country like Guyana, the translated impact, and what we have to work on rebanding and rebuilding. And this has been the fortunes of the PPP civic government from 1992. In 1992, the restoration of democracy, we had to work to rebuild a bankrupt country with nothing. But this is the good fortunes of the PPP, to do the heavy lifting. And we're always prepared in the People's Progressive Party civic government to do the heavy lifting. I want to say to you that our development and our democracy is built on what I would term an inclusive democracy model. And Article 13 of the Constitution speaks to what inclusionary democracy is. Our development in Guyana and the development path we are pursuing is not ideological. Let me be very clear. It is not ideological, but it is structural, pragmatic, and in service to the people. It is structural, pragmatic, and in service to the people. And we're able to achieve this transformation and development because of the hard work of the people of our country. And I want to celebrate them for working tirelessly in the ongoing transformation. Indeed, we are seeing a new culture developing. Our people are working in some sectors around the clock. Our workers, our contractors, our road builders are working throughout the night so that we can optimize our productive capacity, given the fact that we already have a shortage of labor. So our development model is a people-centered model, one that engages and empowers the population to be part of and have a stake in the development of our nation. Later this week, we'll be commissioning another such project where we brought together women, and in record time, we were able to create one of our first urban eco-lodges. Later this week, we'll commission that. Because for us, empowerment and prosperity must be built bottom up. And that is how we are building it. Whilst we are focusing on a macro transformation, we are building bottom up the empowerment of families and communities. And this, for us, is very critical. Since assuming office, I have conducted hundreds of outreaches myself. Hundreds of outreaches all across the country. And the cabinet has conducted thousands of outreaches all across the country. directly communicating to the people and listening to them. That is what inclusionary democracy is about. That is the hallmark when the ideas of the common man, when the voice of the common man finds itself in the discussion of the cabinet of the country. When the ideas of the common man, when the ideas of the people in society shape the policy formulation of the country, influences the policy formulation of the country, that is what inclusionary democracy is. So, my friends, I can go through a list of areas through which we have had consultation. Whether you talk about the low carbon development strategy, the real estate legislation, electoral reform, the farmers and fisher folk issues, miners, leaders and business community, the private sector. And on every occasion, as is required by me in the Constitution, I have consulted with every stakeholder, including the leader of the opposition, on matters of the state. For a matter of fact, I formally reached out to the leader of the opposition on 8 occasions between April 2022 and June 2023 in relation to fulfilling my duties in accordance with what the Constitution requires. So you would not find me wanting when it comes to fulfilling my constitutional mandate, because I believe strongly in constitutional rule and upkeeping the Constitution of our country. I have a lot to say, but I'm going to try to limit by wrapping up on a few key issues. There are a number of upcoming events that are key for us. As you know, in the coming days, I'll be in Washington, D.C., having very key and important meetings with critical stakeholders in the Congress and the State Department, the private sector, universities, including the Defense University, War College, and presentation at the OAS. All of this is part of what is a high-impact schedule in Washington. Also coming up is UNGA, and we'll be presenting at the United Nations on key issues including climate services, climate financing, advancing on development of the carbon market, advancing operations in the loss and damage fund, our responsibility in the Security Council. We'll be participating in the Climate Ambition Summit, the Dialogue on the SDG Summit 2023, the high-level meeting on pandemic prevention and preparedness, high-level meeting on universal access to health care, and of course, tons of bilateral, including heads of state and the UN Secretary General. I'm also expected to be the keynote speaker at the International Forum on African Caribbean Leadership, and we'll have engagement with the Council of the Americas and its membership. Guyana is showing leadership and presenting leadership on the issue of climate change. We'll host a side event on climate services and forests in collaboration with the government of UAE, and I went on to COP28 now. This event will be attended by many global leaders and major financial institutions, including multilateral institutions. Guyana has been appointed by the Commonwealth Secretariat to help build among heads of government consensus on the sustainable and regenerative use of natural resources to develop a blueprint for carbon credit, forest protection, and developing a coherent and consensual approach to COP28. Guyana and Gabon is leading efforts in this area. The government will continue to put environmental preservation at the heart of what we do. This will never change. Guyana is just one of 4 high forest cover, low deforestation countries in the world. That is why the recent coup in Gabon, another HFCLD country, is of concern to us. We don't want that to affect its environmental protection efforts. We are more than willing to help them to continue the preservation path. There are a number of anticipated outcomes at COP28 that we are pursuing. On adaptation, we want parties to adopt a strong framework for the global goal on adaptation, whether financial pledges, the Support Adaptation Fund, the Least Developed Countries Fund, and others. On climate finance, we want the developed countries to deliver on their commitment to provide $100 billion to the developing countries, and that they should show signs of accelerated pledge to make up for the shortfall in prior years. We're also pursuing major emitters to have strong commitment to emissions cut. We are looking at the major emitters to urgently put forward robust and ambitious climate plans and pursue stronger policies to cut emissions, including through action in sectors and methane to drive the transformation needed to limit temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The advancement and development of carbon markets, Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. We are pursuing advancement of negotiations on remaining areas of Article 6, including the areas of forests and carbon markets. Advancing operations of the Loss and Damage Fund. One clear identification of ways to collect and fill the fund and disburse resources. Guyana urges that clarity needs to be provided in several areas, including who will be paying into the fund and who will be eligible to receive funding. These are some of the areas that we'll be pursuing at COP28. We are building a philosophy of government in a world 2030 and beyond. We are building a sustainable, resilient, and competitive Guyana in a world 2030 and beyond that will position Guyana ahead of time. So if I may sum that up, the work we are doing now is to position Guyana ahead of time in a world 2030 beyond. So what we are doing now is aimed as positioning Guyana ahead of time. Positioning Guyana ahead of time. Positioning Guyana ahead of time. That is the goal of the investments and policy that we are pursuing. So by 2030, we will not be catching up the rest of the world. We will be positioned in the race and not in trials. The goal is to bring prosperity to every home, maintaining the democratic state and strengthening democracy, building global partnership, leading in food security, energy security, and climate security, reducing inequality, digitization and modernization that comes with improved governance, institutional strengthening, the building out of a robust IT infrastructure, the expansion of social services, healthcare, and the building of prosperity at the home level and at the community level. So that is a net effect of what we are pursuing. And that constitutes some brief remarks that I wanted to share before taking your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the Minister, Kwame McCoy, with us. And I particularly want to acknowledge the first presidential press corps appointed by the media themselves. So welcome. We will now begin the Q&A, and as previously briefed, we will begin in front row, starting from left to right. You will ask one question, and then you can follow up with a second question. And we'll keep it going. Let's try and get in as many questions and answers as possible. So the first questioner, your name and your organization.
Good morning, Mr. President. Saskia Warwick, NCN News. I have a health-related question firstly. Mr. President, a health-related question. At the commissioning of the Victoria Lilly primary school recently, you gave a stern warning to healthcare workers in Region 3 about the quality of service not matching the investments being made. Mr. President, could you say what are the measures going to be put in place in that regions and also other regions?
You want me to take more people? The next question.
Good morning, Mr. President. Cassie Henry, DPI. So some time ago, we would have heard about a potential food security legislation, or rather, a food security and nutrition bill. Could you provide an update on that?
Okay, we'll go with those first two questions, and then I will allow follow-up. President.
Thank you very much. So to begin with, yes, I did say, and I said this when we came into government, that we are going to make steady effort to improve the service at various sectors in our country. And health services is a key and important service. And I've been at pains. First of all, let me back up by saying that I publicly acknowledge the tremendous work our healthcare workers are doing across the country, especially during the period of COVID. Now, the health system is being put a strain as I speak to you now, not only in Guyana, but the entire region. You know, we have shortages of nurses. There's tremendous shortage of nurses, support medical workers, and now we are seeing a massive push for the hiring of even doctors now from the region to go to the UK and EU especially. So there's active, widespread, vibrant, and aggressive recruitment of healthcare personnel in the region as I speak to you now. And that is a concern for Guyana. That is a concern for the CARICOM region. And that is why we're investing now in expanding the availability of training, paying for that training, nurses and all others, so that we can build our capacity up. Because we may very well find ourselves in a position, and we are willing to work on this to help the rest of the region too, in a collaborative way, in the training of our nurses, healthcare workers, and others. So when I said in Region 3 that I was not satisfied, it was because of our community outreaches. And in our community outreaches, persons would have raised issues, some surrounding the infrastructure, some surrounding the way they were treated, the humanness, and some linked directly to shortage in the system of human resources. And I believe strongly, as I said there, that in being results-oriented, we have to hold people accountable. And we have to up our game. We have to up the level of service. We have to recommit ourselves. And that is why I said that in Region 3, we have had several complaints And I've raised this with the Minister of Health. He has held consultations with the doctors, administrators, and all the health professionals in Region 3. And there's a clear strategy that is being developed now in helping us with monitoring, helping us to look at productivity, helping us to look at results. And I want all of these things in the future must play a part in the package that workers receive. If you look at Georgetown Hospital as another example, and see the shortage of nurses that they have and support healthcare workers, and to look at the type of commitment and hard work that they put in there. I myself would have gone there and observed the work and the level of commitment. So we have to have a system that rewards commitment and hard work. And the investment that we make in a different sector must be reflective in the quality of care. And that is what I want to ensure, and that is what the government must ensure. There must be direct correlation between the investment and the quality of care or quality of service. Now, we will be having a national evaluation of this. We had one when we came into government. We took some actions. One of the major concerns at that time was availability of medical supplies and medical supplies, including medication and so on. We had a very, very low percentage of supply in the regions. We were able to take that to almost 100%. We have implemented measures, and now we have to go a step further in looking at the human resources gap and to look at that service delivery. On the food and security nutrition bill, that is a very key issue for us, but we are working with this along with CARICOM. As you know, we have responsibility for food security and agriculture in CARICOM. So we want not only to target food security as an issue, but to address the issue of nutrition with that. So we are looking, I know the AG has been working at a universal type of legislation that can be shared among the different countries in the region so that we can have a common approach to this.
Do you have a follow-up question? You? We'll start on the second row, beginning from the left.
Good morning, Trina Williams from Guyana Chronicle. My question is, recently opposition members have been pushing the narrative that you need to meet with them in order to make progress. And they have also constantly criticized you for meeting directly with the people. What do you have to say in response to this?
If I'm criticized for meeting directly with the people, I welcome that criticism. It's constructive criticism. They may think on their part it's constructive criticism, but I have no intention of reducing my interaction with the people. For a matter of fact, I'll be stepping it up because I believe in the power of the people. I believe in their voices. I believe in their ideas. And I believe I have a strong responsibility to the people of this country who are the electorate, one, and who are the custodian of everything we have here. Secondly, in relation to, I outlined earlier that I have fulfilled my constitutional duty. I have, I am very open. I think that my government is one of the most accessible government. And if someone has no interest in meeting, that's their choice. But I have fulfilled my constitutional duty of fulfilling the necessity to consult. Now, let me be very clear on this matter, because I've seen in the Mara Waves yesterday statement by the opposition leader. Now, the opposition leader is an individual. The opposition is a wide collective of people. And I've had engagements with many members of parliament, many executives of the PNC. For a matter of fact, we have a number of requests, scheduling of engagement. And they can tell you that from time to time they will raise issue, they will share concerns, and they can tell you as to how they have found the listening ear of my government. So we can never be found wanting when it comes to consulting.
Do you have a follow-up?
No, I don't have a follow-up.
The next question.
Mr. President, Dennis Shabal Damarawi. Sir, coming back to the question of inclusionary democracy, yesterday the opposition claimed is that the government has not been appointing its representatives to state boards. Why is this so, if at all it is so? And how soon could we see inclusion of opposition representatives in state boards?
Not only are persons who are affiliated with the opposition appointed to state boards, but if you look at the government itself, you will see that very senior members of the last government are part of our governance mechanism. We are fully committed to ensuring that all of Guyana is represented on these boards. And, you know, when I was Minister of Housing, I said that this claim sometime that fits a narrative. If you examine it from a factual perspective, take for housing when I was there, and look at the allocation of house lots, you would have been shocked. You'd have been shocked. And we have a history of dealing with things in a very equitable manner. So not only are we committed to having affiliates and members of the opposing side incorporated in government and board, but soon you will see appointments at international level that will also include such persons.
Dennis, follow-up?
Yes, but Mr. President, there are a number of boards that statutorily require representatives from the opposition where they have to nominate. Has this been happening?
Every statutory requirement and provision has been applied, and we have committed ourselves and appointed boards based on those provisions, constitutional and statutory provision. I can assure you of that. When it comes to the appointment of statutory boards, constitutional boards, all of this, whatever was required of me in the Constitution, I executed it.
Move on to the next question.
Good morning, Mr. President. Fanu Manikchan, Guyana Times. What can you say about the appointment of a substantive chancellor and chief justice?
Well, I can't say much at the moment, but to say that we have now a Judicial Service Commission. My last update from the commission is that they have started their work. They're looking at the judiciary in a broad and holistic way to see, because it is not only Chancellor and the Chief Justice that we are talking about. It is vacancies that exist in the entire judicial system. So they're looking at this in a very holistic and broad way. And I don't want to speak on behalf of the Judicial Service Commission, but I know they have started their work.
Follow-up?
Okay. Yes, my follow-up is actually on your opening statement. You mentioned consultations with teachers upon your return from the UN. Is that going to be salary increases that were promised?
I don't know that consultation is only about salaries. I
Will it
can't
be-
preempt what the teachers would raise with me. But as you know, I've said before, like we did for the nurses, there will be the adjustment for teachers, but the consultations would be beyond that. Whatever the teachers raise with me, we'll be working together in finding and looking at the macro, having a macro view of what can be done, not only to improve them individually and collectively, but what they can do and how together we can strengthen the education system. For example, the issue of mathematics. I've asked the Minister of Education to come up with a policy within 2 weeks that we can pursue to improve our standing in mathematics.
Will the unions?
Hold
be-
on. Is this your follow-up? Thank you.
Will
Go
the
ahead.
union be involved in those discussions? The,
You need,
the
perhaps you
GTU.
need to move the
Okay,
the
so
mask.
the union, you said, if the union,
Yes.
every Guyanese who want to be involved will be involved. My consultations are public, very open.
Stabic News.
Marcel Thomas from the Starbuck News. Mr. President, you said that you had, I don't know if I heard you correctly, but you tell me, you said that you formally had reached out to the leader of the opposition 8 times or informally? I'm trying to get clarity on that. That's not a question or follow-up. I just want
Formally.
You formally did. I wanted to know
Okay,
if,
now you can ask your question.
yes, my question is, if you are now prepared to formally write the leader of the opposition, that is, write the leader of the opposition, inviting him for a dialogue on a range of issues, including the very constitutional reform. And if you can expound on those 8 formal meetings that you've had.
I don't have to, I can share with you all the letters because they're already in the public domain. I can share with you all the communication in relation to that. I can have the office share that with you because I can't go through each letter with you now. Now, let me say to you that I have fulfilled my constitutional mandate and I intend to continue to do so. Now, I don't understand why this burden is at my foot. Because I'm saying to you that I've fulfilled all my constitutional mandate in relation to consultation with the leader of the opposition. And the issue of constitutional reform, that is, as you know, the consultation for constitutional reform will commence, as I said, in the last quarter of this year. I think the mechanism is being placed, the institutional mechanism is being put in place now. That is the last update I had from the AG, so that the national consultation on constitutional reform can commence. And of course, there's a formula for the establishment of that consultation, consultative body, and the opposition is very much a part of that. So I don't know what else is needed. And as I said to Shabral and Dennis, everybody, you know, and not Shabral, mostly Gordon and Dennis, that, you know, what stops him from calling?
No, I was trying to get if
Your
if
follow,
it's-
is this a follow-up or are you trying to explain yourself?
Yes, yes, sir. I'm trying to explain myself before I get the follow-up.
I have permitted.
Thank you. I was trying to find out if you're going to take a formal approach in the writing to invite him for dialogue and
Dialogue on what?
on a range of issues. There are
No,
a number of issues to
But
discuss.
Master, I
sir.
don't know because you were speaking. I don't know if the leader of the opposition gave you a list of issues, but I can say to you that I don't know. I can't speak in abstract. Dialogue on what? On all the dialogue that is required in keeping with the Constitution, I've executed my mandate. That I can say to you clearly. And every time it is required of me to formally engage based on the Constitution, you can rest assured I will be doing that.
If I may,
And my follow-up now.
if I may, the president has said very clearly that the leader of the opposition can call him at any time. Your follow-up.
Thank you, sir. My follow-up piggybacks off of Vanu's question on the appointment of the chancellor and the chief justice. The same opposition leader, Mr. Martin, has proposed, he has said that he's prepared to accept the, how you call it?
Mind blank? Mind blank?
He's prepared, sorry, he's prepared to accept the current chancellor and chief justice. I want to know if you would go ahead with those appointments.
Well, I've answered this before. there's a way in which things are done, the right way and the wrong way. And I've said what is the right way and what is the wrong way. Now, the Judicial Service Commission is in place. I said that was a key and important body that had to be in place. The Judicial Service Commission is in place. That commission will now conduct its work independently, not only the issue of the Chancellor and Chief Justice, but I know they're working on the judiciary in its macro form, because there's a lot of vacancies and appointments that needs to be made. Having said that, I've repeatedly said, the country is not without a Chancellor and Chief Justice. We have a Chancellor and Chief Justice who are empowered to execute their duties to the fullness of the Constitution.
Back row. Your question. Front row again. First person. Chronicle. No. Second person. Do you have a question?
Excuse me, I have a follow-up.
Hold on. To your left. Go ahead.
Okay, Mr.
It's
President.
not a follow-up. You're getting another question and a follow-up.
Okay, well, I just would like to bring it back of the performance of the non-oil economy. I know that you mentioned that sugar performed well in the first half, and with the Rose Hall estate anticipated to open this month, how do you think that this would improve the lives of sugar workers and the Guyanese economy as a whole?
Well, it's not only the sugar workers, it's the entire communities. You know, when the sugar estates were closed, many of these areas were ghost towns. I was one of the persons who marched across this country for sugar workers and for the sugar industry. Ramjitan was nowhere there. He was on the other side of the table shutting it down, making all kind of derogatory statements. So how it helped, just think about communities where thousands of jobs were brought back on. You have more than 7,000, close to 8,000 persons employed in the sugar industry. Their families. By extension, they're spending in the community that adds the community disposable income. Kaisuku also invests in drainage and irrigation in the different areas that they're in. They invest in community services, including recreational facilities, clinics. So it is an integral part of our village economy, our community economy, and our regional economy. So the improvement of the sugar sector and expansion of the sugar sector is not only critical for at the household level and the community level, but it's important at the macro level too. We have to ensure that we rebuild the industry to be sustainable, to be resilient, and to be competitive. And that is what we're working on. So the mechanization, the use of technology, and also the improvement in yield and the variety that we're using are key components of all of this. The agri part of the business also.
Follow-up.
No, I don't have any follow-up. Thank you very much.
Next questioner. Dennis.
I just want to make sure, because I can anticipate, all the media houses were invited, right? Thank you.
Mr. President,
Was there an excuse given from Kaichor News and the others who are not here? They did not submit a name. Okay, please proceed.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Mr. President, in relation to the sugar workers now, why isn't Gaisuku transferring the sugar workers' monies from the STEPS pension scheme? And if you can allow me a follow-up on the previous question, please. In relation to the Chancellor and the Chief Justice, aren't those outside of the remit of the Judicial Service Commission as far as appointments are concerned in your consultations with the opposition?
No, so I said the Judicial Service Commission because we have, my view of this is we have to look at the entire judiciary. We are not without a Chancellor and Chief Justice. I want the work of the Judicial Service Commission to be expanded so that we can understand the fullness of the issues and challenges of the judiciary so that we can approach this in a holistic way. I point to the fact that there are numerous vacancies within the judiciary itself. Now, at the appropriate time, just as I've appointed a Judicial Service Commission, this matter will be dealt with. This, I have not said in any way, shape, or form that this matter is not going to be dealt with. But let me also say to you and remind you again that our country is not without a Chief Justice or a Chancellor. I just want to keep reminding you because, you know, it can be easily misinterpreted that we are without a Chief Justice or a Chancellor, which is not the case. They have, the Chief Justice and Chancellor have the very clear, their very clear mandate, and they are executing that mandate in line with the full powers assigned to them by the Constitution.
Dennis, I will take it that that was seeking clarity on an earlier question, so I will allow you a question and a follow-up.
Right. So, Mr. President, there is the outstanding question with respect to the STEPS pension scheme. Why has Gaisuko not transferred the money?
So when that is what I'm looking for all the numbers. So I want to be very, very clear with you as to what we have done. And whatever Gaisuku has to transfer, we will transfer. I will seek from the Minister of Finance and Gaisuku the information. But let me say this to you. When you talk about transfer of money, since we came back into office, almost 2,000 persons were re-employed who were fired by the last government in Gaisuku on sugar. The Rose Hall estate is now scheduled to be reopened. The government has fully funded the reopening of the estate to the value of $8.8 billion. Almost 1,300 persons are now employed at Rose Hall. There is a current vacancy for 800 cane harvesters. With the reopening of this estate, there's a current vacancy for 800. So not only are we bringing back those who are fired, but we are opening up more opportunities. We have expended in capital support more than $17 billion. So when you're talking about transfer to help sugar workers, to keep them alive, to keep food on their table, to keep their children in school, because during those 5 years, no one had any interest. It's a PPP Civic and a few partners, GAU, that fought tooth and nail, that ensured that many communities, the then government, Ramjitan, did not know that in Wales, people could not find money to send their children to school. They could not put food on the table. Members of the diaspora used to come every single month and support families with food, bring in school supplies. Many children were taken out of school when Ramjitan and his cohorts shut down their estates and sent home the workers. That was the effect, the net effect. They cost children their education. They cost families their honor. They took away food from the tables of people, children. What manner of people can now claim love when they took away? They are the ones who took away food from the table of these families. And it hurts me. This one hurts me a lot. Because I know what those families went through. I used to go every single the different communities with the then leader of the opposition, vice president now. We knew the suffering. How many children were taken out of school? The same thing for rice in Essequibo. But what Ramjitan and the others want to do is to play on the short-term memory of people. And it is inconvenient and dishonest and disheartening. Let me go on. Upon the government returning to office, sugar workers were paid 5% retro. This 5% that was paid as soon as we came back in office was denied by the last government. More than $212 million, 5% we paid to the workers. They forgot that. They forgot that we went to court to defend them. They forgot that this was denied and the government paid this. The government has fully funded the wages and salary increases of sugar workers for 2021 and 2022. The 7% and 8%, that is more than $1.8 billion, almost $2 billion of salary increases for 2021 and 2022. The government has fully funded it. These are the facts. This is not the convenience of opportunism. These are people who care. What you have from the opposition and some of them is the convenience of opportunism. That's how I put it. Not forgetting the $250,000 grant that was given to the workers that cost us more than $1.3 billion. The $25,000 cash grant. The 1,400 employees at Ifat Estate last year, when I went to consult with them, received over $285 million because there was extended mechanical breakage in the factory that hindered production. More than close to 8,000 employees now we're supporting. If we were not in government, this would have been 8,000 families on the breadline. Let this 8,000 employees of Kaisuku understand this. If we were not in government, they would have been on the breadline. The community despair would have been there, but we have brought it back. And we intend to keep it, keep investing, and make sugar viable. So those are some of the things that we have done.
Mr. President,
Well, hold on.
it's
Dennis.
clarification.
Hold on. Dennis, I've allowed you 2 clarifications already. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. President, you have not answered the question why the money has not been transferred.
No, I have answered the question. I've
Then-
said to you that I'll examine this issue and the Minister of Finance and Gaisuku would relate the circumstances. But I went on to tell you all that was transferred. Now you may wish to ignore all that has transferred, all that was transferred. You may wish to ignore all that we have done. You may wish to ignore those who brought the industry on its knees, those who took away food from the table of the workers, those who caused children their education. You may wish to ignore that, but I cannot ignore it. Thank you.
Dennis, I think you've had absolute clarity. Do you want to ask a follow-up question, which is entirely different to that?
Yes, Mr. President, to follow up on the Chancellor and the Chief Justice. Time and again, your administration has observed that it has not been exactly satisfied with the number of the court rulings by the Guyana Court of Appeal, particularly in relation to the political cases, the no confidence motion, and some of the election-related cases. To what extent is that a consideration in you not wanting to readily appoint the...
No. Let me stop you there. You're taking your assumption a bit far. Me not wanting to appoint a Chancellor and Chief Justice?
But
Is
you
that
have
your-
been critical of the of some of the rulings, your
So-
administration.
So show me. So democracy is a funny thing. Eh? Democracy is a funny thing. We have not been only critical of some of the ruling. We have been vindicated. You forgot that. You forgot that there's a final court called the CCJ. And every time we have had an objection to a ruling, we did what was right in the eyes of the rule of law. We respectfully went to the CCJ. And I don't have to tell you the results.
Fair enough. That's
All
the
right,
right
Dennis,
context of my
Dennis,
question.
Dennis, this is not a debate. The
So
president has answered your question. Next questioner.
So Dennis, I've made it very clear to you. We, you, and the people, all we have democratic rights. Every time we had an objection with a ruling, we did what was right in the eyes of the law. We went to the CCJ. And the ruling of the CCJ are there for anyone to examine.
Next question.
Mr. President, can you tell us about the upcoming visit of the Emir of Qatar, as well as your recent meeting with officials from the
With who?
Bank of America?
What was your second question?
Just put the mic closer to your mouth so I can hear
I
you.
wanted to know about the upcoming visit of the Emir of Qatar, as well as your recent meeting with officials from the Bank of America.
Right.
Okay.
So let me start with the second question. The meeting with the officials from the Bank of America is exactly what we're having every day. We are having every single major financial institution, every single major multinational business coming to our shores, looking at opportunities, looking at how they can contribute to the development of our country, looking at a space through which they can operate. So Bank of America came examining opportunities that exist here for them. They had meetings, elaborate meetings with the Minister of Finance. We raised with them exactly what is already in the public domain, that we do have an interest in one more commercial bank of international standing, preferably an American bank, international standing. You know, we are developing our market to become very, very more sophisticated in the future. The financial services will be much more robust. The financial services will be extended. So these major financial institutions are all coming. We had not only meetings with Bank of America, but we have a lot of ongoing meetings with Citibank and other banks across the globe. We, in the EMIR, as you know, we have been expanding our relationship with different countries. We have a very active bilateral engagement with the state of Qatar. The Emir is coming to Guyana to pursue and follow up on a number of initiatives that we have under discussion, including investment, including support in oil and gas. They have already offered technical support. There are companies there that I think are participating in the ongoing auction. They have expressed a direct government-to-government interest in exploration. That is a government-to-government collaboration on exploration. They're working with us on some loans, and I know they are in the process of finalizing arrangement to establish a formal footprint here with an embassy in Guyana.
If I can just follow up.
Go ahead. But make it quick. We're coming to the end of our time.
Can you say when the Emir is coming? And on the issue of the Bank of America meeting, in 2016, the bank had severed ties with Guyana, raising concerns about AML-CFT compliance. Was that issue brought up?
Not 1 second of it. They were totally enthusiastic about Guyana, and they were gung-ho on Guyana. They were telling us about all the prospects they were seeing and how viable and they were, and that has been the story of all the investors, all those who are coming.
Yeah.
Now,
Sorry.
you would be informed in due course on the exact arrangements. So when the Emir will be here, I mean, you would appreciate that there are some things that I would not want to discuss at the press conference, but that you will be quite engaged and knowledgeable about what is taking place.
So, Mia, you will be concluding the conference. I will allow you one question and a follow-up.
Thank you. I take you back to the same Chancellor and Chief Justice. issue, Mr. President.
Mhm.
You keep emphasizing that we have a chancellor and we have a chief justice. That is a fact. We do. But the fact is also they've been in acting capacities for the longest, with one being for nearly 20 years. Isn't that an indictment on the respective governments who've been in power, including yours, on how you view rule of law and the importance of the judiciary?
No,
You don't
no,
think
no,
so?
because the roles and the function of the Chancellor and Chief Justice, as anticipated by the Constitution, is fulfilled. Just like you have an acting commissioner of police. So I'll be clear. There is a Chancellor and Chief Justice in the office of the Chancellor and Chief Justice, fulfilling the functions of the Chancellor and Chief Justice. There are a number of challenges in the judiciary, including vacancies that the JSC is working on. And, as I said before, this is something that will be addressed.
So
Okay,
is that-
Nia,
is that-
Nia, hold
Yes,
on.
sir.
You may not like the answer you got, but I'm not going to allow a debate.
It's not a debate, Mr.
What is your
Nascimento.
follow-up? What,
I'm just trying to
Nia,
get
I'm speaking.
clarity. Mr. Nascimento.
Hold a minute, please, and then you will
My
speak.
name is Marcel.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do.
Please ask it.
But I also need clarity on the very question, Mr.
I
Nascimento.
have been very clear.
I think the president has been
I've been-
clear.
I wanted to know from you.
Nia,
if
I
you
will
were-
not
if-
allow a debate.
It's not a debate,
Go
Mr.
with
Please,
your
Nascimento.
please
I'm
respect
just-
the chair.
The president is
I'm
allowed-
asking
I'm
you to
just
respect the
asking you.
chair.
Proceed with your question.
Go ahead.
I was just asking you, you said that they're fulfilling their roles and what's not. Does that mean that
Are they not?
They are,
Good. So
Yeah.
you agree with me that they're fulfilling their role.
they are.
Thank you.
But I wanted to know from you, if you're prepared as president going forward, should you get another term, are you prepared, are you comfortable with an acting chief justice, an acting chancellor to go on?
Now,
Fair question.
I won't say that, I won't put it the way you're putting it. I would put it this way. I want to have, there are three arms of government. We want to have excellence at every arm. As I see it, when I continue in office, as we build a country 2030 and beyond, with the power of the people and the help of the people and the support of the people, and that is why I'm working with the people every single day, to convince them that I am worthy to be humbled by their support. And that is what is important to me. That is why it's a government that is working in the interest of the people and the service of the people every single day.
And
Now,
substantive
now
follow-up.
I will,
And I know that I will win your support too.
now
Because I know you're a person of consciousness. So let me say that what I'm concerned about is an effective judiciary system. One that we can rely on, one that the international community can rely on, one that is efficient and supported by the necessary technology and infrastructure that will make them efficient, one in which we have the full complement of judges and magistrates, and that is what the JSC is working. So I'm not going to be confining myself to individuals or posts. I'm going to confine myself to the system, and I'm looking at the holistic system. All right, thank you.
we've exceeded our time by 5 minutes. I will allow you a follow-up question.
My follow-up is on the important announcement that you made on the crunching of the numbers to ascertain if we'll have, you said,
We're working on the
income tax.
the daily wage,
Yes.
the minimum
Wage.
daily wage, and also looking at the tax threshold. We're looking at the numbers.
Yeah, I wanted
That
to,
is as far as I'll go.
you know.
That is as far as
I
I'll go.
wanted to know if you've set
What is
I
the
know
que-
exactly where you're going.
Well,
And I'll say that as far as I'll go is that we are looking at it.
okay.
Thank you very much. You missed two questions when you had an opportunity to ask them.
But listen, you guys know that I'm the most accessible person.
So
you can
the-
catch me on the sidelines. You can catch me in the corner. You can catch me anywhere.
If the president will allow me, I will allow one more question. May I?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
Mr.
And no follow-up.
Mr. President, the CPL Cricket Carnival season has begun. Could you say what are your expectations in terms of visitor arrivals, and are you excited, especially with the performance of the Ghana Amazon Warriors, since we've lost no games as yet?
Good question.
Very excited. Even more excited when we get the trophy. But let me say that it has been amazing. I don't know if I should say this, if I'll get in problems saying this, but well, then I shouldn't say it. But we have been in an embarrassing situation in terms of hotel rooms. We are completely out of hotel rooms. And we had major delegations that has to limit their stay in Guyana now because of the lack of hotel rooms. From a situation when we were building the Marriott where we were criticized and we were called all kind of names, to now where we are embarrassed because we don't have enough rooms. It tells a big story. And that is why these hotels that we are building are so important, that not we, the private sector now. And we have to ensure that we expedite the delivery of these rooms. So the arrival has been enormous. There is consistent growth. You know, we have different challenges with this. 2 nights ago, I was awakened by calls from the airport of persons from the diaspora who were coming in. And they were relating to me that you had about 4 flights coming at the same time. And you had more than 600 arrivals at immigration. And they were lining up even outside of the facility onto the tarmac. So these are challenges that are coming. It's a growing market. We're going to invest to make it better. So we are very, very excited. I know the Minister of Tourism is very, very pleased with what is taking place so far. And, you know, the mood is one of, I think, celebration. I hope that the Amazon Warriors will keep that mood up until after the finals. Thank you.
I would like to, on the conclusion of this press conference, to emphasize the fact that we are now establishing a presidential press corps, and every media organization in the country was given ample time to appoint their representatives. If there's one media organization not represented here, it is their fault, not that of the office of the president. Thank you very much. We have now concluded the press conference.
See some of the social media guys and so not here, one of them. You know.